Hi, and welcome back to Thone's Mount Nibbles number 7. Again, true righteousness is what we're talking about, and we're going to be talking about hunger and thirst. The scripture of this beatitude is Matthew 5:6. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. So this is to those who are hungry. Now, why is this in the Bible? What is real righteousness? And where does it come from? And it's really asking that question. How do we find it and take hold of it and take it into us? Communications. Look for it always. Application to my life. Hunger and thirst here is, of course, symbolic for us of strong desire to be fully understanding and practicing Jesus' teachings. It's the thing that we should quickly develop after a salvation experience so that we can get as much of the information as quickly as possible so we can become useful to God. The second phrase here is a promise that truly seeking these characteristics, then the Lord will give them to us. That is, if we say, Lord, give me righteousness. Give me, that's not, if just saying it doesn't make it so. We need to really show the Lord that we are desperately searching out for righteousness. So maybe a good title for this rather than hunger and thirst is desperation. I don't know. But we're just being told that if we really try to get righteousness, then the Lord will provide it. We must note that this is not something that can be provided for us by our own doing, but rather that the Lord provides them when He senses our desire to be increasingly righteous in our lives. This is very key in understanding the Beatitudes, and in fact the entire Sermon on the Mount. It is our responsibility to learn about God's righteousness and then try to integrate it into our lives. We must be careful not to extend this comparison too far, in that if we try to say that we are going to be perfect like God, then this opens the floodgates to a whole variety of heretical teachings. In fact, this was one of the issues with the Pharisees. They basically believed that they were righteous and they of their own good works and therefore were better than other people. Righteousness is a divine gift, not a human state. Summarizing, we seek God's righteousness, not our own self-righteousness. Finally, we should search for justice and holiness and God. That is the hunger that is spoken of here. Hungering for justice and holiness and God. We won't, and you think about it, that's a good order. Justice, that's something that's sort of inside us, and understanding that something is just or unjust. Not to say that we always obey that thought, but that's an understanding that we have. And then that leads to holiness. That is, we want to live out a just life. And then we find God. And then there's a circle that goes on here. Let me get that in front of the camera there. There's a circle that goes on there. We search for justice and holiness and God, and then we get righteousness. And then we recognize that our definition of justice needs to go deeper. And so we redefine our justice to be even more specific. And then we get holiness, and then we get God. And it keeps going on. Now, we never get perfect, and that's what I said. We got to be careful about that. We never get perfect. But each time we go through this cycle of uncomfortableness with the lack of justice, and then think about the holiness that can overcome that, and then takes us back to God. Every time we go around that circle, we get deeper and deeper and deeper into the idea of true righteousness. And that's really what we need. God says, I reward those who search for my will in their lives. And that's really sort of that circle I was talking about. We start out with God says, don't go left, go right. And if we go right, then that's the way of justice and the way of holiness, and God says that. But then God gets a little more specific, and you go right, but you only go 3 miles right, and you speak to somebody there about me. And it just gets, every time you go around the circle, the instruction from God gets more complicated, but at that time, more righteous, because He knows where to send us. My personal response to all this. Lord, thank you for freely giving us the righteousness we need whenever we in good faith seek it. And that's, we can only seek it. It's up to God to find it for us and teach it to us. So we'll talk next time.